All right, everybody, welcome. We are live. We're joined today by Anthony from the Fever Dreamland Theater channel. And today we're going to be taking a look at a night gallery episode called They're Tearing Down Tim Riley's Bar. One of the more highly regarded ones. Is it a typical night gallery episode or not? We'll get into that. But how's it going, Anthony?
It's going great. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on your show. I greatly appreciate it. As I was saying before the chat, Mr. Dan, I've known you for a couple of years now, and I feel like we should have done something a long time ago. But better late than never. I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you.
And for those of you that don't know, Anthony's got a ton of Twilight Zone content on his channel. You interviewed. I know it's a three-name name. Mark Zicree. Mark.
Yeah. No, you got it. Mark Scott Zicree.
Scott Zicree. Okay.
Yeah. A couple years back.
Yeah. Who was the author of what? The Twilight Zone.
The Twilight Zone Companion. That was
Well, I have something similar for the Night Gallery.
Oh, do you have that book? I've been meaning to get that. I might have to. I may have to give myself a Christmas gift of that one. What is the name of that one that you have?
Rod Serling's Night Gallery and After Hours Tour. It's by Scott Skelton and Jim Benson. And I haven't gone on the website in a while, but they're like the Twilight Zone experts. So they had a website which had some forums and some products. As a matter of fact, I've got holding the page for Tim Riley's Bar. I've got my Rod Serling bookmark.
Awesome.
There you got an episode that you did in your top 10, The Maid.
You can't get help like that anymore. I believe.
And there's Joan Collins.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a book. I don't know the title of it, but it's the focus of it is on the paintings. I think the paintings were by Tom Wright. Let me see if I get it out of the way. This is actually a painting from the episode we'll be talking about. There's a book on that too. I've been meaning to get that too. I've heard good things about that for anybody checking this out. Yeah, some stuff to look into.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it was the paintings and the faces and the masks, which actually, for a time, prevented me from watching this. I know that it was on a late night slot for a while. I'm not sure if it was the original running. Then I should have been in bed and I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, and I was staying up. I think it came on at like 11. So it was pretty late. And a lot of times I didn't make it past the opening because it scared me.
Yep. No, all of those shows back then in my time, like stuff, the Tales from the Dark Side stuff, they had these creepy openings. If you got through that opening, then you're okay. But most of the times the openings would do it. And we were talking about this a little before the stream. Night Gallery, unfortunately, like I didn't ever catch this one in reruns. So to go through the show was mostly fresh for me. I'd always heard good things specifically about this episode.
Right.
And Cemetery, I was very familiar with. So I may have seen that one along the way. That one seems to be a super popular one.
I think maybe the pilot may have been on more than the show, maybe. I don't know, because I was very familiar with all three segments of the pilot.
It was I know the Eyes was one of the other ones.
Eyes with Crawford and
then the one
Tom Bosley.
With the war criminal.
That's Richard Kiley, the war criminal, with the paintings. Yeah. It also has paintings, just like the segment with Roddy McDowell. Yeah. The Cemetery. Right. Yeah.
It was a really strong pilot / TV movie, whatever you call that. Yeah. It really was. High production value. They had some A-lister actors. It was a very strong start to the show. That's one thing I noticed as I went through the show is there was a lot of name actors in there. It was that were pretty big, and I tend to be more familiar. I think because of YouTube over the last couple of years, I'm more familiar with some of the actors, maybe a generation or two behind, as opposed to like whoever came out in a movie yesterday.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm getting like that. I'm watching a lot of like 50s westerns, and I'm seeing a lot of the same actors, or TV and movies again and again and again. Sometimes on the same show, like it's like 5 or 6 different characters. I'm starting to get to know a whole new generation. But the funny thing is, of all the episodes that I somehow made it past the opening titles and watched, was the one we mentioned earlier, the caterpillar, which haunted me. And that had Lawrence Harvey in it. He was pretty big time back then.
Yes. Yeah. It's some fun. Well, not really fun. It's actually gloomy. But trivia on that episode, I believe, was the actor was suffering at the moment. He had I don't know if it was right. Is that so? You've heard this story too, and he really was in pain, sadly. And I don't know if I believe the story goes that he avoided the painkillers during shooting so that he can have a more, grain of salt. I'm not sure if that's true, but that might have been some trivia I read, because that's another good one. That one was on my list, and but definitely a creepy episode, and definitely not one for people who have a thing with bugs or insects or any sort of thing like that. And I'm one of those people. I'm not the biggest fan of bugs and insects. I have a younger son who's into them, and I'm like, oh God, of all the things to like, it has to be bugs. But you know what? He's getting me over. Thanks to him, he's getting me over my my fear of bugs. I guess you could say. I don't even know if it's a fear, more like a skeeviness.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Well, we had. I grew up like woods behind me, and so we would be out in the woods. I remember we used to get ticks a lot. I have this weird memory of seeing this weird ass spider that I can't explain to this day, because it was like bigger than I don't think it should have been that big in New Jersey, but we had what we called earwigs. And I remember one time I came in and I was like doing this to my hair, and one fell out in the sink. And they were just kind of gross looking. And then I kind of put it together with the episode, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. And now, God, these shows are meshing together in my head now. We have a big spider episode in Night Gallery also, don't we?
Oh, yeah. I think I got it. I got the bookmark here.
Yeah. Over the last couple of months, I've been going through like these older TV shows. So, the big spider episode. Although I forget. Yeah. Fun stuff.
But, so this one, like compared to the Twilight Zone, just wasn't on. It didn't seem like it was on as much. Like I was saying before we went live, I know for a while it was showing in the morning, I believe, on Sci-Fi Channel, but it was cropped into a half an hour. And, it wasn't like Twilight Zone where they did the New Year's Eve marathons year after year after year, nothing like that. So, that's kind of like, I think a lot of people probably have the history with the show, which is unfortunate. But tonight, let me introduce the episode, everybody, and then we're just going to kind of go through it a little bit and talk about the legacy of the episode at the end, and go from there. So anyway, tonight we're joined by Anthony, YouTube's resident Twilight Zone and Rod Serling expert, as we tackle one of the most critically acclaimed episodes of the other Serling series, the darker cousin to the Twilight Zone, Night Gallery. In his review of the classic Twilight Zone episode, 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, Anthony expertly broke down the mystery of 5 characters trapped in a cylindrical shape. That episode follows veteran actor William Wyndham playing the Major, the last character to arrive, and the one that is most exasperated by the predicament, which includes not having any memory of who they are. In the Night Gallery episode, they're tearing down Tim Riley's bar. William Wyndham is trapped again, not physically this time, or metaphysically, or even metaphorically, because, Serling liked to use metaphors a lot. But he's trapped both by the emerging corporate patterns of post-war America and fate, which has pointed its fickle finger at him and taken his wife at a premature age. In contrast to the Major from the Twilight Zone episode, Wyndham's Randy Lane character retains too much memory, the memory of his late wife and the good times he had at Tim Riley's bar, which is scheduled to be demolished. So when the episode opens, he's not there. It's like 3:00. He's having a late lunch. He likes to have his martini lunches. And we meet pretty much all of the other characters in the office setting, at least. You have his secretary, played by Diane Baker, who plays Lynn. You have a younger executive, Harvey Doan, played by Bert Convey. And then you have Mr. Pritkin, who's the owner of this plastics firm, played by John Randolph, veteran actor John Randolph. I'm just going to call him Pritkin because his last name is Randolph, and I'm going to get him mixed up with the William Wyndham character. I don't know. Why do they do that?
I don't know, dude. And I feel free to correct me if I goof up along the way here too with some names or anything like that. But that was perfect. Yeah, well said. And I'm glad you brought up the intro too, because what really struck me about that intro, was that, like you noted, like he's not even there. Like they said, he comes in at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But just right from the start, you get this great setup that I have to credit Rod Serling for, because he establishes everything about this character, not only about our lead character, who we haven't met, through all of these other players, and in doing so, he establishes our lead's relationship to those characters, because we have the secretary who, I guess we'll get into it, but I don't know if you would say she's in love with him, but she definitely has feelings for him. She's definitely covering for him. You have the boss who's sort of indifferent. And then, of course, you have the slimy assistant who's looking for his job. It's so well set up, you know, and William Wyndham hasn't even walked on screen, and we already have the story in our head. And it's almost like you're just waiting for him to show up, and you know he's going to get it too, because I mean, what is it? I believe it's 25th anniversary. It's like, dude, 25th anniversary or not, you're late to work, you're showing up looped, and geez. So it's just, but it's such a strong start to,
and I love the way,
awesome episode.
I love the way Bert Convy he's hanging around. He's not doing anything. He's just waiting to say something so the boss can hear.
Yeah.
You know?
And
he does that a few times, and it's real slimy the way he does it too. You know?
And we can all like relate to this at some level, some job, some, you know, some career, whether you're a job, you know, a job or career person, at some level, at some point, we encountered people like that. It's, you know, and you can relate to, in this case, it's like, it's the young guy trying to take the spot. You know, it almost, it brought me back to like many years ago when I was young, and I was like, and I thought back when I was watching this episode, I was like, Jesus, I hope I wasn't ever this guy. I hope I wasn't ever this young. I don't think I was. I know that I had sales jobs in the past, and that's another reason why this episode is very relatable. But I don't ever remember being that cutthroat as this guy is in this episode. But he also makes for like a perfect antagonist. We don't get a lot of him, but we get just enough of him for it to be effective, I'd say.
Yeah. He like ramps it up too as the episode goes on. And the fact that they made it a sales was smart, a sales job. Because you know, I was sort of involved in sales indirectly, and it wasn't for me. But you know, in a lot of cases, you're not just competing with other firms. You're competing with the guy in the next cubicle. So there's that kind of environment within the building, and so he's late. He's supposed to have a report due. So the Harvey Done character, you know, gives it to the boss and says, "Oh, I fixed it up for him and everything." So then he comes back. They have a little bit of a confrontation, and you know, the boss, Doan is pretty much moving up. You see, like Lynn is really concerned. She points out the anniversary to Crichton, and what's crazy is he says, "What do you mean anniversary? His wife died a long time ago. He doesn't even get what." That was a little bit sad that he had no idea.
Yeah, and that's working both ways as being good writing for me, because it's multitasking. It's like it's establishing a thing that's going to become really important, but also it's showing you that his character again is just like, oh yeah, that's right. His wife is gone. Yeah, dude, have some sympathy. Right. You know, but nope. It's all about work. It's all about that everyday grind. It's not his like 7-year anniversary. It's his 25th. Yeah. As his character says, a quarter of a century, you know. So, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it should be kind of a big deal.
It should be.
But the boss, but speaking of the sales environment, the boss actually makes the point where he says, and in a way, it's pretty harsh because he's kind of right, where he says seniority doesn't come with just time. Like you're supposed to keep bringing clients, and you know.
I look, you know, I'm on the lead side in this episode. However, like you said, there's this again, credit to Rod Serling. There's some nuance here. The boss isn't totally wrong. I can't be on the side of the scummy guy who's just trying to get his. But the boss, I understand. You're showing up drunk and late, and I mean, come on. I mean,
So he was already at Tim Riley's bar for an hour. So then after that confrontation, he goes back, and then he meets the cop, McDermott, who I think is he's like the 5th lead in here, and he's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's another good scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another strong scene.
Yeah, he's dressed like the old-time cop that walked the beat, which I thought was clever. When the other cops show up later, they got helmets on. They look a little more modern,
Good catch, yes. Yeah, that's true.
That was kind of clever. So they know each other. The
Mm-hmm.
cop even knew his father and used to drink with him. And they have some pretty good lines together about, just getting older and everything.
Yeah.
So I think then he goes back to the office, even though I saw it twice. It does go back and forth a lot. Not that it too much. I'm just saying that there's a lot of sort of visions. So just he has his first
if the vision, when the vision took place, right? Is the question? I think, like it's after his meeting with his friend who's the police officer.
Yeah, it is after. He walked away. That's right. He walked away.
Right?
There's a little spot in the window, and he looked through, and that's when you saw everyone in there waiting for him.
Yeah.
Come back, after World War II, he came back and they had a surprise party for him, and they sang for "He's a Jolly Good Fellow," and his father sang another song, and I love the guy that actually plays Tim Riley, bald head. He's like big giant smile on his face, and he's like, "Hey, come on in."
And then everybody in there is they're all playing it perfectly. They're very inviting, they're very welcoming. Yet, I don't know. I get an eerie sense from them. It's very ghostly. They do a good job, and there isn't even anything hokey added to it. There's no glossy effect or smoke. They could have went that way. They didn't. It's played pretty straight, and it works. I think it works really well.
Yeah, because then he looks back. When he looks back in or opens the door, it's just an empty bar again. But I'm glad they didn't add any effects because the short segment after this, they actually did that. They had like projection effects. Yeah, it's not good. I mean,
the Jack Cassidy one with these.
Yeah.
He's disembodied walking around.
Yeah, the disembodied guy walking around, and it's a lot of this.
That one to me, not to go too off track, I sort of like that one too. It's good for what it is. Like it's like a short, sweet little in and out. I don't know. It's not great, but I actually sort of like that. I ended up rewatching that one, and maybe that's why it's stuck in my head. So
I had it on in the background after I watched this one. But it's weird to have that paired up with this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, they don't exactly go. That was the I'm trying to think of the name of it too. But anyway, yeah, you're right. This is the first segment, and then that's the second segment.
Yeah.
The Last Laurel.
The Last Laurel. Yeah.
The Last Laurel. Just for listeners who are curious about that one.
But that all the sort of flashback dream sequences, whatever, are really well done. Eventually he goes back to the office, and then he really gets everything laid out where pretty much the boss says, guess what? You and Harvey are now co-directors. Yeah. So, you really got to eat some crow here. And they have a lot back and forth, and Wyndham pretty much, tells him, Harvey, you got to rise at him. You did what you were trying to do, mission accomplished. And then I think that's when he opens the door, and then we see the office back like post World War II.
Yeah, and the boss is a bit younger, right? Yeah. He's talking about, you're new to the company, but you're coming in at the right time, something like that. And
plastics. It's the future.
That's a fun little upbeat scene too. And again, it just ties back to him sort of looking back at the good old days, right? Mm-hmm. And works really well. Works really well within this context. We don't get too much of the office stuff. The flashbacks are mainly the bar, which is justifiably so. Yeah.
But I thought for as brief as that scene was, they went all out to sort of to make like a whole different office. Yeah. It looked like it was from the 50s,
I have no complaints about this show overall. With like sets and design and stuff, it holds up pretty well. Maybe it's because other shows that came a little bit later in the 80s and 90s, although I love those too, the budgets were considerably lower, and you noticed it. So when I go into a nice night gallery episode with this, where we get different sets and there's some location shooting, it's like, oh, thank God, you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm sorry, please go on.
No problem. And then actually he gets a call from his wife, and of course when he picks up the phone, it's not his wife. And just like the desperation or the joy in his voice, thinking that he's going to talk to his wife again. It's really sad. And then somewhere in there, we get secretaries. And I like the shots of the secretarial pool when the boss is yelling at them. They're all like,
they're looking. They're. I think there's snickering going on, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah, like they're all kind of like, But it's just like in the movie Patterns. Every executive has a secretary, and it conforms to the gender roles of the time. I mean, it's all males, and then outside is all females. But they're singing. One of them is having a birthday party, so they're singing "She's a Jolly Good Fellow" or "Woman." I don't really know if they would have sung that song, but it worked because.
Well, this episode used every opportunity possible to sing for "He's a Jolly Good Fellow," man, woman, puppy. Either way, they were singing that song. Yeah.
Oh yeah, people did it solo.
If you're not a fan of that song, you might have a problem with this episode.
Right? Yeah, that's the only thing I would say. If you don't like that song, this might not be your episode. But then, of course, he flashes back once again to the bar, and he sees the wife there and everything. And apparently, behind the scenes, the wife was only there an afternoon, and I can get her name in a second here, but they asked her to just let it go and do it solo. And apparently, when she was done, everyone clapped, and she was like stunned by that. She was like kind of terrified to just do it solo.
Understandably so. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, that's
Susanna Darrow, who played his wife Katie. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, not much. She didn't have much screen time here, but very strong little moment right there. Very important too.
Yeah. Right.
That's another character. Like we most of what we get about her is through our lead and through his grief, which is like, I mean, he wears all of his heartache just right on his sleeve, and man, you really feel for this guy throughout. But so when she shows up, in person, although it's not really in person, that's another powerful scene. It really is. I like that one. Yeah, this whole episode, this whole segment is just one thing after the other. It works for me.
Yeah. And apparently, she was so like into the segment, even though she was only there for like an afternoon, that she kind of was hoping to sit down and talk to William Wyndham a little bit. But she only ever knew him as his character.
Okay.
Just because they were busy filming. Yeah.
I would imagine it was like a hustle and grind with like shooting real quick, gotta be in and out and stuff. Yeah. All right. So, that's I guess the nature of that world.
Yeah. So then he goes back to the bar. This time he breaks in and he really gets drunk and he's singing for "He's a Jolly Good Fellow," and then we have a couple different officers show up.
Yeah.
They're about to bust him when McDermott shows up and kind of rescues him and says, "I'll take care of it." But the Randy Lane character says, "Take me back to my house." His original house, because after his wife died, he moved. So he goes back to his house and he's going to walk home because he does seem like he's sober. But then he starts having episodes there and hearing, he hears his wife, even his wife saying, "Oh, you got to wipe your feet when you come in."
Yeah. And he starts wiping his feet on the steps and stuff. Again, it's all shot so well, very emotional, very heartfelt, but good stuff. Yeah.
And then his secretary, Lynn, the wife is calling his name, and then that transitions to the secretary calling his name, and he turns around and she's there. Yeah. And that's a good scene. And then she says, "Hey, let me give you a ride. Or even if you want, I've got, I forget what she said, some filet mignon and some potatoes." And
she's got that steak in the freezer. She keeps
steak in the freezer.
It's like, you're watching this. For me, I'm watching it and I'm like, go with her. Even if you guys aren't going to, you can just be friends. If that's all, if that's where he's at, that's totally fine. It seems he obviously still has a deep love for his for his wife that he's lost. So it's understandable if he doesn't want to get involved in another relationship. But you almost want to go through the screen and just say, "Guy, I think she has interest in him." But that's the way I take it, maybe more so. But also, it's just a shame. Like, I'm watching his character, and it's just like, I really wish he'd go off with her. I want that, happy ending but we'll get there on whether or not we as you go through your breakthrough. But I will say that she was great in this, that actress throughout, and I felt for her. She was also like a strong player in all of this.
Oh yeah, definitely. Diane Baker, as we discussed.
Diane Baker, thank you. Just a good name.
I got familiar with her like later in movies. Like, she's in a movie called Jackknife with Robert De Niro and Ed Harris. It's very much under the radar, but she was really good in that. That's probably one of the first times I noticed her. having said that, I had probably seen her in a lot of TV episodes and just didn't know that was her.
Yeah.
But she really does a good job in that scene. Unfortunately, it starts raining and he takes off and ends up going back to the bar, and he spends the night in the drunk tank. Yeah. So then the next morning he comes in and of course Harvey Doan has to show the boss the newspaper. He has
of course, he's there with that. Yeah.
He has to let
right
the
on
boss
cue.
know. Yeah.
Right on cue. Jesus.
Just absolutely savage, So, and I forget when the secretary learns that she's going to be assigned to somebody else.
Another interesting aspect of this, and again, she takes her, her boss's side on this. She doesn't want to do it, and boy, they're pretty actually cold toward her.
Yeah,
right? She's talking to a personnel person, and he's like, "Look, I don't have time for this. You're gonna do this or clear your stuff out."
Yeah, that guy was good, and it was, he had one scene, and it was, he was ruthless. He was like, right, you can either do this or get your severance check.
That's it. It's like, hey, it's 1971. You do this or you're gone. That's it.
Yeah,
I don't know that it would quite be like that nowadays. Maybe
no, no, you would have to go.
Thankfully,
you'd have to go through 25 steps. It would take a year and a half.
Talk to my union rep. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying. But yeah, back then it was just like, you just get the axe really quick.
Yeah, for sure. So he pretty much gets fired in so many words. He gets a call. He takes the call. I think the boss does say something like, I have been reminded that is your 25.
Yeah, along the way.
Say at least one line in there about it. Today's pleasantries notwithstanding, that, congratulations.
There's an acknowledgement, but it's like a half-ass sort of acknowledgement.
Yeah. But he pretty much gets fired. So then Lynn, look, the gender roles are pretty much conforming to the time, but she's actually a pretty strong character because she goes into Pickens' office and tells him off, which is pretty bold. I mean, I guess if
it absolutely is, and not to jump ahead, but she does good work. Let's just put it that way, because she gets through to him, I guess we should say. Right. And you could see it on his face. To the actor's credit, you could see it on his face. You could see the changeover. And it's subtle, but you can still see it, where he goes from being like, a complete hard ass to like, okay, maybe I need to lighten up a little bit, or maybe I haven't treated this guy as fairly as I could have, with no words. I don't believe he has a lot of dialogue in that.
Not really. No.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all her. It's all her. Again, another strong scene from that actress.
And then we also get a hospital flashback around there. I believe when he goes back to the bar, he touches a construction worker, but when the guy turns around, it's a doctor in the hospital or something like that. Yeah. And he flashes back to when his wife passed away. He was on the road selling plastics and she got pneumonia and passed away. So that's, he feels pretty bad about that, obviously. Yeah. And then we have, he goes back to the bar one last time as the construction workers are literally tearing it down. And he sees everybody, but then the imaginary people, his father and Tim Riley and everybody, they're the ones that start telling him, "Oh, it's time to go. You have to let go of this," and it's actually pretty sad. And then they kind of fade away, and it's like you said, the effect is good and it's not hokey.
It's subtle,
And then literally, like the wrecking ball is right there when he walks out.
Yeah.
And then guess what he hears? He starts
what else is he here? Yes.
He goes over to the much more modern bar. I think it's called like Antoine's or something.
Yeah, I think you got it. Yep.
Yeah, but also when he stepped in the street, I don't know what the make and model of that car was. There's like a red sports car. Mm-hmm. He almost steps in front of it. The guy's like, "Hey, watch it, buddy." And I don't know if that was intentional or that just happened to be the car that they used. But once again, it was something that was, for at the time, was very new and flashy. Okay. You know what I mean? I don't know if that had any significance.
Yeah. Well, and even the dialogue, "Get out of the way." Again, it's like the world. Everything about this episode is the world telling this guy, "Get out of the way."
Right. The construction workers are like, "What are you doing in here? Get out of the way."
Yeah. So everything's working here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But he makes his way into this bar, and there's everybody, including the police officer. I don't think Harvey Doan was there. I don't think he was.
Oh, good question. Now I have to rewatch one more time, or at least that scene, because that's a good point. Is the slime ball who was trying to get his job in there? Because apparently we could assume he got his job back. I guess.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And that's it. That's pretty much our as happy as you can get for of an ending for a story like this.
Yeah, the boss pretty much says, it's to my discredit that I didn't notice your 25 years, and here's to 25 more, which kind of surprised me a little bit. I think the first time when I saw it, and apparently there was some question about whether this was supposed to be a happy ending or not. Yeah. People had different memories of it. Like somebody said that the editor, well, there's a couple things. Somebody said that a young production assistant came in and put all those shots of the wrecking ball in, because it cuts to a wrecking ball tearing down Tim Riley's bar, like swinging many times.
Yeah,
like we definitely get enough of those shots, and then the whole thing is rather upbeat. But apparently there was a version of the script where it ended when he was standing on the wreckage of Tim Riley's bar.
Yeah, I read that as well too. I'm really curious because of the conflicting stories, it's like who knows?
You almost can't tell.
Yeah, you literally can't tell. I believe Mark Scott Zickery had a comment on that, and then somebody else had a comment on it where it went a different way. In any case, this is the ending that we got. This seems to be it. I will say this: my first time watching this segment, as far as the ending goes, I did find it a little bit, I don't know about confusing, but a little jarring. I think it was the cuts of the wrecking ball. My first time watching this, I was like, what's going to happen here? Is the building going to fall on the guy? Like, why do we keep showing this? And then he goes into the bar, and I wasn't sure if I'm meant to take it as this is going on in his head, or is it actually happening? I'd like to think it's hopefully actually happening. It makes sense that it's actually happening because there's a lead into it, right? When his secretary goes in and tells the boss off. So I think it really is meant to happen.
Right.
I'm thinking out loud now as I'm babbling too. I'm sorry. But yeah, I will say the first time I watched this, that was my feeling on it. But I will say this on a repeat viewing now, the ending works better for me. I took it as though he's leaving this old location. This was just my interpretation, and we have the wrecking ball about to go through. I think that what the editor is trying to get across was that he's finally maybe leaving the past behind and he's going towards something new.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's what they were going for. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. It seemed like they're only like I almost think there could have been a third option where they go in and they give him a party for his 25 years, but then him and his secretary go to do something else together, because she said she was going to follow him. I don't know what his prospects were. They didn't spend any time setting anything up, and it kind of reminded me of in Requiem for a Heavyweight, the Anthony Quinn character.
Sterling thing, yeah.
They were trying to figure out he didn't know. He's like 39, he's over the hill, but he's good with kids. So somebody was trying to set him up working at a children's home or something counterintuitive to, it's been a while since I've seen it, but they didn't really introduce any other possibilities for him in the show, because they only had 40 minutes to just a limited amount of time. But I was thinking a better option would be the two of them after the party go off and do something different. But
and you don't even just imply that they're going off together. Maybe, hey, I'll drive you home or something like that. I think that would pretty much do the trick. I would have liked that too. I think I would have liked that too, because it would have given a little more closure to their little storyline that they have going there, because that's sort of another big part of this episode. But yeah, overall, really, really wonderful. A lot of those Rod Serling trademarks and hallmarks are in here. There's obviously, I'm surprised we haven't brought it up yet, but there's obviously lots and lots of similarities to a couple of Twilight Zone episodes. The first one being Walking Distance. Of course, this one's always been compared to that. And then the other one would be Willoughby,
Willoughby, Yep.
So a much darker take. I've seen it said online like this is almost like a trilogy of that type of thing. So basically, it's like you have the older person who's sadly maybe past their prime. They're a little bit down and out. And they're looking backward. And they're looking backward to a point where it's detrimental. And it's this is a thing that I think we can all relate to as we get a little bit older, and this episode really resonates with me, and I think it probably has resonated with a lot of people throughout the years.
Yeah.
It was nominated, I believe, just to get into trivia a little bit too, right? It was nominated for an award. I don't think it won, but it was at least nominated.
No, the Andersonville Trials telemovie.
Oh, that was the one that took it. Okay.
Yeah, and but the thing is, it was pretty controversial for a few reasons. A lot of the the episode wasn't nominated, but nobody else was. The director wasn't. None of the cast were. Rod Serling wasn't. That's a strange thing.
Yeah, that is weird. So it was written by Rod Serling, and so Don Taylor would have been the director for this. That's strange, though. Okay. Oh.
And we got Mike here. Mike's DVD and Blu-rays. What's up, Mike? How you doing?
Hey. Hello, Mike.
You can join us. Yeah, and then the other thing was, I think they were pretty upset that NBC Universal didn't take the nomination and use it to push the show more. They really, they just really didn't, and then they lost, and people, not enough people really know about the episode as a result. Yeah, but yeah, I think, and you know what else it made me think of too? Like, he's almost becoming obsolete. So of course that reminds you of the episode called The Obsolete Man.
Yeah. Here's another lesser known one that this one feels similar to me. And I'm not sure if I believe it's The Trouble with Templeton. Have you seen that Twilight Zone episode?
Yeah, you'd have to refresh my memory though.
Okay, so this was an older actor, again, very similar. He's older, he's past his prime. I believe he has a young new wife, but I believe he lost his previous wife. So we have a very similar story. And the young wife is downstairs with the pool guy, very out in the open about the fact that she's cheating on him. And he's an older school actor, and he was in the theater. And he also is looking backward, and he misses his first wife, who he lost very young, and he misses all of his old friends. And definitely check that episode out. I won't spoil it too much for you, but there's a lot of similarities in this one. So that's another one. That's a slightly lesser known Twilight Zone. I'm a fan of that one, but I've seen that not too many people are a fan of that one. Right. I feel like, but I do happen to like that one. I like it when Rod Serling goes sentimental. I like it when he dives into this subject matter. I'm all there for it. I've seen some people say, "Oh, he's tackled this subject matter before," but he's doing it damn well. Excuse my language. He's doing it so well. He's knocking it out of the park every time. Yes, there are some similarities. There's familiar ground being covered, but he's tackling it in different enough ways. Right. For me, there's a lot of nuance here. There's a lot of different there's a lot of different spins. So yeah, I'm totally. I think Rod Serling did excellent here. I think this is get more of his finest work as far as television goes. I'm happy to have it. Is it a standard Night Gallery episode?
No, not at all. That's what I'm going to get into next, because it's really not.
Believe me, wherever you want to go next, I'm happy. I'm here for the night.
I mean, is it the most like the Twilight Zone out of any of the episodes? I mean, I think it could be.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. If there's a list of 5 episodes that are close, this has to be on it.
Yeah, maybe Miracle on Mott Street, or
that one as well. Yeah,
but this one definitely. It really is kind of unusual for the Night Gallery. Yeah. So, but and as we were discussing in the beginning, you didn't make your cut of the top 10, probably because it didn't have that Night Gallery feel.
I think that's what I think you said it best. I think I love this, but I think at the time I was just like, I'm kind of here for the horror. I'm here, even if some of it is a little schlocky or whatever. This is what I'm here for, though. I want the dark stuff. I want the creepy stuff. I want the macabre. And this episode, don't get me wrong. I don't want a dark version of this episode where at the end somebody turns into a monster or anything like that. But I'm happy with this episode as it is. I think just for my purposes at that time when I was doing a top 10, I was mostly focused on those types of episodes. Yeah. This episode, I think I did screw up a little bit by at least not giving it an honorable mention, because it is another one of my favorite episodes from
Night Gallery. So it would be in like your top 15.
Oh, easily, yeah. It was on my top 10 for a while. I think it just got bumped by a couple of episodes that are a little more horror and sci-fi, focused. That's all.
creepy dolls and haunted houses. And
I was like, I don't know, that creepy doll, the creepy doll,
the creepy
that earwig.
Yeah, the creepy doll one stayed. That was another one that stayed with me. But the problem with that one is I conflated that with many other. There's been a lot of haunted dolls and puppets and things over the years. So I conflated that with like 3 other movies and TV shows. But that one's a pretty good one too.
Yeah, I like a lot of Rod Serling's entries in Night Gallery. Like I would try not to watch. I remember when I was going through the show, I would be like, all right, let me not be biased. Let me see if I could ignore who wrote this episode and just watch it. But it doesn't take too long as you start watching this. I'm sure you pick up on this in this episode. The dialogue alone, Rod Serling, the way he wrote everybody, it's so poetic. It's so beautiful. The language. People don't necessarily speak that way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I don't care. I love it. But the thing is, the minute you start watching this episode, just with the quotes and the language, you're like, oh, this is a Rod Serling episode. It's a Rod Serling episode.
And it helps when you have someone like William Wyndham delivering the dialogue, because he's selling it. He's not everybody could, but he was definitely selling it for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was a standout here. Everybody was in the episode, but yeah, no, I heard that, or I should say, I checked on his his profile and stuff, because I know of him from Star Trek and I know of him from a couple of other things, but and Twilight Zone, of course, but I didn't know of him from too much else. But he was really great here, and I read that he wasn't often like a lead per se. He was usually like
right. No, I don't think so.
So this was a bit special for him. That's quite a highlight for his career.
Yeah, and I think the director pretty much brought him in and said, he had really good intuition, despite the fact that he hadn't directed a whole lot. He was an actor. He kind of switched to directing, but he pretty much said, "Hey, this is our guy. If you want me to direct, this is going to be our guy." Whereas, they might have gone for somebody. Who knows? Maybe younger, trying to look old. It might not have worked as well, But they got the right guy. Yeah.
I mean, in the Star Trek episode, with the Doomsday Machine, he shows up with the and he's kind of it's not really similar per se, but the demeanor, the persona that he has, it's sort of similar. So he's good with this sort of like this kind of like he could be this sort of rough around the edges guy. He nailed that aspect of it. He's obviously a much more sane person, although I guess he's seeing visions from his past. I don't know if you can say that, but I don't know. He's a more likable character. He's not taking over any starships in this episode. But still, just a really strong performance from him.
Yeah, and now we mentioned how like at the end they have another. It's like 10 minutes. I think it's like 8 minutes. Generally those were the idea of Jack Laird, who was like the co-producer on this. And I know like apparently him and Serling clashed, but Serling, his thing was he kind of gave up being the showrunner because he was, it's exhausting. So that's what it's kind of like, that's kind of what you get. In a way, I think they actually helped this series because like this episode was just the right length. If it had to fit into an hour time slot, it might have got repetitive. And I
bring up a good point. Yeah. I didn't feel padding in this one too much.
No, not
at all. It moved fine for me. The pacing felt okay. No complaints. But you're right. So you're right. It would have been restricted if it to like an hour, or I shouldn't say restricted. Maybe it would have had to fill that hour spot.
Yeah, right.
Then maybe we would have felt padding or something like that. Yeah, a lot more where he's the jolly good fellow song. a couple more
another round. Yeah. Yeah, well, what I noticed in a lot of the
one more time, here we go. Where he's the jolly.
Yeah. What I noticed in a lot of anthologies that deal with ghosts and stuff, a lot of times they just repeat some of the same scenes to fill out the hour, but they didn't have to do that here. So the thing about watching it on DVD is, if you don't want to watch the final segment, you don't have to. It's like a la carte. You just take out the good stuff.
Yeah.
Because the book, these guys they are rough on those segments. The short ones at the end,
really,
they're pretty rough.
Okay, I could see this episode being. Oh, you mean the second segment? I could see that one.
Yeah, all the final ones, because some of the final ones were only like 2 minutes long. They were,
but even
it was
like
that,
it's rough.
Yeah, it was nothing but a punchline, really. And like, some of those were kind of funny. Some of them were kind of cringy. I know that Jack Laird himself, he's there's one where he's made up as a werewolf. So you got to hand it to him. I mean, he was willing to sit in a makeup chair and do that for several hours for a 5-minute episode. So he believed in it, I guess. But I think, and of course, when we were talking about earlier, when they reran it and they had to squeeze into a half an hour, that created problems. But now I think is the time. I mean, if you're interested in Night Gallery, you just, you got to get the series and just go through it is what I would recommend. Yeah. There's some real gems in here.
Yeah, this is definitely one of them. You were mentioning that they chopped up some of these. I couldn't imagine this episode being chopped up. I've only, thankfully, I guess I should say, I've only ever experienced this just DVD as is. I guess director's cut. I guess that's the best way to watch it. But boy, I couldn't imagine. I've seen comments here and there on certain episodes in like comment sections where people will be like, "Oh, I used to love this episode, but the version I saw didn't include this or didn't include that." That's rough. And I know I'm not a fan of, this isn't really censorship, but it's for the purposes of like commercials or ads or whatever. I'm not a fan of that. But,
I'd like to have all that stuff restored. As a matter of fact, I've been watching episodes of Rawhide. I actually got the DVDs. I was watching them on a streaming service, but then for some reason I started watching them on YouTube. Whoever put them on YouTube was leaving off the theme song at the beginning and the end, probably thinking that like, oh, everyone knows the. I want to watch the whole thing every single time.
Yeah. Oh no, I hear you. And
the whole
maybe
thing.
They're leaving it off so it doesn't get like axed. You know what I mean?
Maybe,
that could be. In which case, I don't know. It's weird with all of these shows. Like if you hunt around online, sometimes you could find them. And if they're streaming, then okay. Again, best. Like we're both, physical media. Like this is the best way to go. If you want to watch this show or anything, grab the DVDs or grab the Blu-rays, right? Hashtag support physical media, whatever you want to call it. But this show. Well, speaking of Night Gallery, I don't think this is streaming anywhere, not presently.
Yeah, you know what?
I'm not sure.
Before I got the DVDs, I think I was like looking around, and it was. I think it might have been somewhere briefly, but when I found it, it already had like the time limit on it, like 2 more weeks left and it was gone.
Oh boy. Okay.
One of those things. And you don't see it. You really don't see it streaming anymore.
That's rough because this is a good show. Like you said, there's a lot of gems in there. I mean, thankfully with Outer Limits, I've seen that streaming here and there. And again, you could get the DVDs. Twilight Zone is everywhere. And it's free on like others. I believe Pluto has it and stuff too. So Twilight Zone, for the most part, you can still get that. Me TV, I believe it's on there. See, Night Gallery seems like a thing that would be great for Me TV. I don't know if we have that here in the Bronx. I think we do, but Night Gallery would be awesome for that.
Sure. Yeah.
Trying to think.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a fun bit of nerdy trivia I'll share with you about William Wyndham. I didn't know this. Maybe you knew it already because I was looking at some of his other credits. So we know of Twilight Zone. We've mentioned that. We've mentioned Star Trek. As he was also in Escape from Planet of the Apes, but he was in that also with I believe John Randolph. So they were both in Escape from Planet of the Apes. Yeah. Kind of interesting. Hey, hello, Echo.
What's up, Echo? How you doing?
And but here's a bit of a more nerdy one. I saw that William Wyndham had a credit for Uncle Buck, and I was like, Uncle Buck, is that a deleted scene? I don't remember Uncle Buck I don't remember William Wyndham and Uncle Buck anywhere. Okay, so I'm like looking and I'm like, oh, it's voice work. It's voice work for Mr. Hatfield. And I'm like, who the hell is Mr. Hatfield? Now I don't know how you recall I don't know how well you recall Uncle Buck. I love that movie. That was like one of my favorite John Candy movies. But in the beginning of the movie, he goes to his brother's house and he's knocking on the wrong door and he's driving the neighbors crazy. And somebody yells out the window something like, "It's 3:00 in the morning." That's William Wyndham.
Oh my gosh.
I love that trivia. Again, grain of salt. I read it on IMDb, but I'm pretty sure it's accurate because I've seen him. I checked it a couple of other spots, and so yeah, that's one of his more oddball credits that I saw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, but here's another one too for one last little bit of nerdy trivia. I knew that I recognized. I feel bad. I keep forgetting this actress's name.
Diane Baker.
Diane Baker, thank you. Silence of the Lambs. She was in Silence of the Lambs. She was the mom, I believe, of the young girl who was kidnapped.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
She was in the Columbo as well. She was in Diary of Anne Frank. She was in a lot of stuff. She was in
a lot of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Straight Jacket. I have to see that. Straight Jacket I've slept on. Have you seen Straight Jacket?
With is that with Joan Crawford too?
I think so. Yeah, I know it was from 1964. So
yeah, I haven't seen it.
Going back to Journey to the Center of the Earth from 1959. And I believe we were mentioning too, I think she's still with us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty cool. And a Columbo episode, Last Salute to the Commodore, for the Columbo fans out there.
Right.
That's just a couple, but she was in a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know who I recognized John Randolph instantly because I'd rewatched National Lampoon Christmas Vacation. I believe he was the dad in that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I love all of this kind of stuff. Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know Bert Convy got into like producing like game shows and stuff.
Yeah, I was reading about that too. He looked familiar to me, but not as much. I think I saw he was in Cannonball Run. Although, yeah, I'm not too sure about that one.
Yeah,
but so yeah, some interesting stuff here.
He used to be they used to have Bert and Bert Productions. It was him and Burt Reynolds.
Really?
Yeah, they produced like game shows and stuff. So I think they had like a Pictionary type one. So sometimes he would come on and I don't know if he was the host or he would like be one of the participants, but yeah.
Okay, cool. I love going down. Sometimes you ever go down a rabbit hole on that with like, oh, I know this guy from this and this guy. And before you know it, you have 20 tabs open on your browser and Wikipedia and this and that. Like, I know I remember him from this and her from that and blah, blah, blah. It makes it's fun. It's actually kind of fun. It's also interesting when people like are, like we're ended up in the same TV show or same movie. I love those sort of little things. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I like when I can figure out that the same casting director was probably involved in like a movie and then like years later a TV show. Because even like that movie, what's it called? Something, not Pacific Heights, Lands. There's a movie with Samuel L. Jackson where he has a problem with his new neighbors have a problem with him, but it had all these.
It's like a racially charged sort of movie.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it had Robert Pine, who was in Chips, and the guy that played Harris on Barney Miller, and had all these TV actors in it. And I was like, I guarantee you, somebody that worked on this was a big TV producer back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, it had to be. Yeah, that's funny. All those little behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, when you're fans of these shows and these movies, that's fun too, man. And I think you get into that stuff. The more you like these things, the more you end up buying the books and and reading online and stuff. And when we do these videos, we end up sort of mentioning, oh, by the way, so and so was in this or whatever. We can't help ourselves.
Right.
We love it.
Yeah. I definitely got to go back and check out the website, but then I'll probably be tempted to get the rest of the bookmarks or something. They actually had like a figure of the what is it? Pickman's model. The creature in Pickman's model, the rat thing, whatever. Yeah. They actually had one of those you can buy, but this was not like a mass produced thing. So it was like $150.
Oh my goodness!
Like, well, that would be nice to have, but
yeah, sometimes I do find that some of the cooler stuff is like the fan made stuff.
Yeah, right.
That's maybe not official, but it's floating around somewhere at a convention. Maybe you could buy it or somewhere online. That's some cool stuff. I've seen some, not to go way off topic, but like Nightmare on Elm Street. I've seen some cool items that like are like handmade, like Freddy Krueger sculptures or whatever. They're not official, but they're pretty awesome, But for Night Gallery, I feel like I can't think of anything in terms of like merch.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot. That's why I thought that Pickman's model was so
absolutely
cool.
Yeah. And there's some cool creatures throughout this show. There was some cool creatures.
They did have
there's some things that would make for some fun figures or statues. I think. Hell, I'll be happy with a shirt or something like that.
I think
maybe just for he's the jolly good fellow.
Well, you got to get a William Wyndham plushie, and you press the button, and it
just sings where he's the jolly good fellow. Oh, jeez.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you have any other tidbits or anything you want to bring up about Night Gallery?
No, I was glancing through my trivia, and I think I got through the bulk of my nerdy trivia, thankfully. And if I have more, we'll restart the entire stream. No, right. I don't have any more. I believe that was it. I got out all my thoughts and stuff on this one. Really, really, really good episode and fun chat. Again, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Man. I really do. Awesome.
No problem. Yeah, it is a really good episode. Even if you don't think you would like the show, check it out. It's a little different. So if this is the first one you watch, it's not going to be like many of the other ones. But really good, solid acting all through and through, and great writing, and really good insight into Rod Serling's thought process and the things that he was preoccupied with. I would say for sure, definitely. But so what's going on your channel lately? You're putting out a couple videos a month.
I always have stuff in progress. I have I'm gonna get back to Twilight Zone in the new year. I hope to get some more stuff out. And I have a Monsters top 10. Speaking of old TV shows, I'm not too sure if you're familiar with the Monsters TV show that was late 80s, early 90s. Very much in the spirit of Tales from the Dark Side. I recently rewatched that, picked my 10 episodes. I'm hoping to get that up like this week, next week. Editing is a bit of a nightmare, and the holidays and family and stuff like that and work have kept me a bit busy, but it's moving along, just slow going. My hope is that in a new year, 2025, my hope is that it's a better year, and that hopefully I can get out some more stuff, and hopefully we could do another collabo. I'd love to, if you're up for it, man. Pick another episode or whatever, and we'll knock through some more Night Gallery, bro.
Yeah, that'd be great. Definitely, for sure.
Very cool. I'm just gonna invite myself back on your show.
Yeah, no problem. All right. I keep saying this, but I really want to do like just a regular sort of monthly kind of open lines kind of a stream. Talk about whatever too. I keep saying that I'm going to do that. I'm probably going to do something before Christmas, maybe this weekend, just to pop up for a little while.
All right, cool.
But then also like picking some of these topics in these TV shows and stuff. Are you a fan of Kolchak, the Night Stalker, at all?
Yes, I've seen the first TV movie and the second TV movie, and then other than that, I have to dive into some of the other stuff with that. But I really like that one. That was another late watch for me. I think I've only saw that for the first time a few years back.
Wow.
I very easily understood. I'm like, wow, no wonder this is such a like a fan favorite. Very, very, very good. Yeah. So that might be a fun one to maybe talk about then, because I'd love to revisit that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I have both the movies and the series. I haven't actually watched every episode of the series yet. I've been kind of like pacing myself, but
how many episodes are in this? About how much? If you're not, I don't know if you're as familiar with it.
It's like a season. So
okay, but still,
might be about 20.
Okay, I mean, if you're a couple nights, you can knock through it, right? If you make the opportunity, and then you could do like if you're like a best of, if you even wanted to. But yeah, that's another. That was, I mean, again, I haven't seen enough of it, but yeah, that one was just like that was awesome. Yeah, Kolchak was awesome.
Yeah, that's one I had heard about for years, but I guess I just missed it when I was a kid or whatever. And then when I finally saw it, I was like, whoa, this is awesome. So.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Like that's one thing I'll say about YouTube. Well, I guess I don't know if I can say I'm new to YouTube anymore, but like came in around 2020, and thanks to YouTube, and people's recommendations and stuff, I've checked out lots of stuff that had been on my radar for lots of years, and I always wanted to go back to. And now I have, and it's just like, wow, okay, it's actually kind of fun, It's like I was missing out, but now I finally caught it and got into it, and it's been a blast. Night Gallery, being one of them, it's been cool, man. It really has.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, well, okay. Well, we'll wrap it up here, folks, but we'll definitely have Anthony come back. Make sure you check out the Fever Dreamland channel for more content and collaborations. And hang on a second, Anthony, I'll just end the stream. But as far as my channel, I've got a video on Friday, my usual Physical Media Friday video. So come back for that. All right. Later.